Welcome back to Conspired, where skeptics and believers come together to discover the truth.
Exactly, the truth.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
Well, I was actually sitting and thinking about how we say that at the beginning. And we never do discover the truth. We get to the end and we're like...
The point's to try to get as close as we can to the truth. And I feel like some of the things that... Casey Anthony, I feel like we are almost there.
Yes.
I feel like my theories
We're
the
sound.
truth, but... You know.
Yeah, everybody thinks that their theories are
I
the
know,
truth.
but I feel like I took all of everything that there was to offer and made it all fit in one theory. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong, but I'm just saying. I feel like
she could be completely innocent.
I feel like we come as close to the truth as we can on this podcast.
I think aliens came down and
All right, here we go.
Casey was innocent.
Well, we are glad to be back. And first and foremost, I would personally like to apologize for the 2-week hiatus.
Yeah, almost 2 weeks.
Yeah. I just got finished with school, I guess probably a week and a half ago.
Yeah, it was a week after June.
Almost 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks ago. So it's just kind of been chaotic. Just kind of been taking a break and getting some rest. And
actually, you were sick too.
I was sick too, but
I think it's going around.
Yeah, but we're well. We're glad to be back. Like, this is one time, like, usually he has to be the motivator to go and, like, do this, but, like, today I was like, I really, really, really want to do podcasts, particularly what we're going to be talking about today.
I was glad that she was the motivator because all last night I'm, like, telling people, we're going to do this weekend, and then you say, I'm going to the beach, and I'm like, okay, I need to do it before I go to work.
I'm going to the beach tomorrow, and I was like, oh man, well, if we're going to do this and make sure it's not 3 weeks, then we definitely need to record today.
Right.
And I have a show to do tonight as well, so...
So we're going to rush through all the beginning stuff. We're going to say, hey, if you love what you hear, go to iTunes, give us a review. 5 stars.
Yeah. We've had some... I really do honestly want to stop and, like, thank those that have given us a review and, said, like, really nice things so far. Like, and, like...
Don't say anything yet, because remember, I already told them that the first... Or random 10 out of the first 30, I lowered it. Was 50, but I thought, that's going to take too long. So the first 30, 10 out of 30, 1/3 of them, we're going to give shout-outs. If they're fellow podcasters that are helping us out, we're going to talk about their podcast. If it's our fans that just love listening to us, we're going to read their review. And, get on Twitter.
I had a couple friends of mine that were like, so are you releasing a podcast soon? I was like, oh, we're working on it. Why? And she was like, because I try to listen to other podcasts, but none of them are as interesting as yours. She was like, I'm not even saying this because I know you. I'm saying this because it's... I'm just saying that's what I was told. But yeah, several people have said that, and then other people have also been like, how are you getting your podcast this high in listening rates?
Yeah. On Twitter, whenever I posted that it's been 2 months?
It's been like 2 months.
2 months, and we hit 4,000 downloads, and people are like, "What's your secret?" And I'm like, I don't know. We just talk about
things that are interesting to us, and I guess it's interesting to other people too.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can say.
And obviously, it's because you're so smart and you know everything, and that's probably why. Because they want to know the truth, and so they have to ask
and that's where they get it
for the truth
from me, the all intellectual one.
Well, you talk that way anyway.
Well, some of us have to be logical.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway. All right, so again, please, if you're not already, follow us on Twitter. Leave us an iTunes review. We love bringing you this weekly podcast, and I hope to goodness that we're going to keep it consistent with weekly.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do better. Promise. All right, but today, what we are talking about is something that we've been discussing doing since the pilot aired 2 months ago, and that's talking about personal stories. Now, obviously, my personal stories are going to be a little bit more paranormal than his will. And
Completely paranormal from what mine are, because mine aren't going to be paranormal.
well, and when I say personal stories, we're talking about weird things that have happened to both of us throughout our lives. And to me, these are the most interesting stories to hear from anybody, because it's like, you know, we talked about Annabelle last week and you were saying like, oh, well, that's so famous, it could be fake, you know, whatever. I feel like I'm way more interested in hearing like subtle, weird things that have happened to people, because that seem above everything else, those stories are the most believable to me. It's like, because, you know, especially with me, like where little weird things have happened, those are the creepiest things to me. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I see what you're saying. Like, whenever
They're
I
more
tell
believable.
people, when I tell people at work that I don't believe in paranormal, they go on to tell me their stories about
And I
how
love
paranormal
that.
things
I
happen.
love when people tell me things like that.
And I'm just like, I'm not one to try to explain away theirs, because it's theirs. You know, they feel these things are real, and why would I need to argue that?
Right.
It's more fun to argue the big things, you know.
The bigger stories.
Yes.
Yeah. So we even discussed before this, he promised that he's not gonna
Make fun
Try
of
to-
paranormal stuff.
laugh at my stories or whatever, because like you said, these are extremely real to me. And
Even though that's why y'all listen, is so I can, you know.
or they like hearing my research on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Either
It's
way.
probably true. It's all your research.
But I've got 5 really good stories. I don't know what he's got. We didn't really discuss this prior, but I've got 5 really good stories for you today. They're not very lengthy stories. Like I said, they're very subtle, odd, unexplained things that have happened to me throughout the course of my life. And I was, you know, even thinking, what stories do I want to tell? And I was able to come up with 5 pretty good ones. And they ranged from me being about 11 until recently.
Yeah.
Like months ago.
Yeah.
So,
I think that you should tell your stories. Now, I'm going to try not to make fun of them, but I would like to explain away some things. You know, if I feel like...
you can try.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm just going to say something. You can just brush it off and be like, you big skeptic, or whatever you want to say.
I'm just hoping that if you're anything like me and you're listening to this and you love hearing people's paranormal stories, that you can sit back and maybe get a little scared, listen to this in the dark on the drive home at night.
Gather around the campfire.
Gather around our campfire.
We're about ready to tell some stories.
We're going to tell some stories.
It
And
was a hook man.
at some point, I'll stop and let
Well,
you
no,
tell.
I was thinking you go ahead and tell your stories.
You tell yours at
because
the end?
Mine's like, I don't have a lot, so I was
Okay,
just going to tell
that's
it at
fine.
the end.
And like I said, mine aren't too terribly lengthy either. So I'm going to try to do these in chronological order. Like I said, they start from when I was younger till about pretty recently. The first one has to do with childhood toys. Now, I know that, you know, I'm sure any of you listening are like, oh, childhood toys, because a lot of people are like,
I'm like, yay, childhood toys.
when anyone hears about, like, you know how we talked about black-eyed children, the fact of kids acting weird is scary because they're supposed to be so innocent. When people think of toys doing things they're not supposed to do, it's scary to people. I don't know why. I'm the same way. I don't know. So, just for some background, I come from a family of 6, and this occurred when I was about 10 and 11. I had a younger sister, or I have one, but at this time she was about, let's see, if I was 11, she was young. She was like kindergarten age.
She'd be about 5 or 6.
Yeah. And then I had an older sister and a younger brother.
Actually,
So-
no, if you were 11, then she would be like 2, because she's like 10 years
Yeah,
younger than
that
you.
would be about right then. Either way, she had a room, and she had, of course, had all these abundance of toys in there. And one of these toys was a vanity. And it was like a little plastic princess vanity. And the coolest thing about this was that it was motion detected. So, like, when you would walk up and sit in front of it, or the child would, it would go bring, like a little, and all the stars would light up around it. And she loved it because it like made you look like a movie star because all the lights would light up and there were like mirrors on each side. And she loved it because it was so cool because it was motion sensor. Well, excuse me.
Yeah, we're still in this cold
Yeah,
thing,
I'm sorry.
So bear with us.
But yeah, so these kinds of things would only happen at night. But every now and then, like random nights, my mom said this had happened to her, and it personally happened to me as well. We would be walking by my sister's room, and right when we would get past the doorway, we'd hear the bling. And of course, we'd be like, oh, my sister's up. And we'd go back and look in the room, and nobody would be there, but the vanity would be flashing its little star lights as if someone had just been there or was still sitting there. And not only did this happen once, it happened concurrently with for a significant amount of time, and then it just randomly stopped. But it really freaked my mom out because at first, she's more like you with, explaining things away.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, that is really weird. And eventually, I think what ended up happening is she turned it off, turned the vanity off, and it never happened again. But it was just a really weird thing because my sister would always be just sleeping in her bed.
Yeah, see, I would have just returned it because it was defective.
Right.
Got a new one.
But the thing is, if it was defective, why did it not continue to be defective?
No, it could just be randomly defective. Like, say, if it's got a motion sensor. So anything that's in the room, if, I don't know, flies or just something went past it, or if it just had a wire inside of it that
Are you
just
saying
randomly...
there were flies in my childhood house?
Yes, there probably were. Most houses do have flies.
One other toy that I was also going to tell in the story that was a little odd was a toy that belonged to my brother. And as you can imagine, I just thought about this. I was even younger when this happened. But he had a Big Bird doll that when you would press its hand, it would say peekaboo. And
That's scary in itself.
it is. And what's even scarier is my mom put batteries in it when she got it from my brother when he was about 2, probably. And my brother is 21 now, and those batteries still work. Those batteries still work. She's got it in the garage.
You know what brand they are?
Hold on. She's got it in the garage under all these stuffed animals. And she said similar to the vanity, this is kind of her story more than mine. Similar to the vanity, the doll would be under all these stuffed animals. And then she'd be cleaning or something in his room and she'd hear peekaboo.
Are we sure there's even batteries in it?
Yes, because she checked it. And she even told my dad, I cannot believe these batteries still work.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because paranormal things are full of energy, and there may not be batteries in it. It just might just be, some kind of demon inside of it.
The scariest thing about that was that those batteries had been put in when my brother was 2, and to this day, they still work.
Well, you also have to think that it doesn't take a lot of battery power to say peekaboo for a machine just to say something.
But the fact that you had to squeeze its hand to get it to say it.
Well, no, that's just the button to make it work.
Right.
So if you're moving stuff around and cleaning up and a little bit weight goes on the hand that's in there, it's going to say peekaboo.
And with those things, I feel like those are more easily to explain away because sure, toys can be defective. What I found weird about the vanity was that it was only defective for that month.
Yeah, that is weird.
I mean, and the Big Bird thing with the
batteries. And after that, it never did it again?
It never did it again. It was just very strange. And only at nighttime,
I want to know what your thoughts are. What do you think was with the vanity for that 1 month?
It was really strange. It freaked us out for sure.
Yeah, but what was going through your head? What did you think?
What did I think as an old...
What was your hypothesis? What did you think that the vanity was or did or, just your thoughts?
Well, as a child, I obviously was scared because if you see something come on and nobody's there, what's a child going to think? Oh, it's a ghost, obviously. Looking back now, I don't know. Could it have been defective? Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, could it have been...
I'm just wondering if if the ghost theory, like some people might be out there thinking, well, a ghost floated by it, can motion sensors pick up ghosts?
Well, that's, I guess, what the idea would be behind that if it were paranormal.
Right.
But I think I've always avoided anything with motion sensors since then, because it's like...
I love motion sensors.
Ugh, yeah. So, definitely want to know what you guys as listeners think. What was that all about? Like, it's...
The demon
freaky.
Possessed it and was like, you know what? After a month,
all right,
I was like, this is
you said
boring.
you weren't going to do this.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I tried so hard. How far did we get? Almost
Dad
15 minutes.
Dad jokes.
They're not
We need to
dad
make you
jokes.
t-shirts. A t-shirt, and if you guys want to buy it, we'll call it #DadJokes. You can be just like Gerald.
Yes. Everybody wants to be like me.
Okay. The next story is one that happened when I was about 15. Same house. And this is when... And it also kind of centers around my younger sister, this one as well. For this story, the only people that were there at the time were me, my brother, my younger sister, and my mom. And so, my younger sister at this time was scared of her room because she was convinced that something was in her room, you know, making noises, whatever. She would get scared at night because she would hear noises in her room, and
I think all kids are scared.
of course. And so for the longest time, she wouldn't sleep in there. Like, she would sleep. My parents had a love seat in their room, and so she would sleep on that because she was terrified. She was scared.
How old was she?
Oh gosh, if I was
Just
15,
around about.
if I was 15,
She would be 5
5.
or 6. Okay.
No, I take that back. She was older than that. This was older. So I had to have been... She was about 8.
Okay.
So I was about 17.
We're going to say
so I was about
10 years
17.
difference. Yeah.
Okay. So, anyway, so we were in the living room, this one part, and my mom was trying to comfort her, saying, you know, nothing's in there, nothing can get you. It's all in your imagination. The more you think about it, the more you're gonna, quote, think you see or hear. Like, she was basically trying to talk her down, trying to talk her out of it.
Mm-hmm.
My brother and I were dying laughing because, of course, it was hilarious to us that she was so worked up over her room when clearly nothing was in there, you know, blah, blah, blah. And by this point, we had all forgotten about the vanity incident. So my sister was sitting, you know, with my mom. She had her arm around her. And me and my brother were just, like, dying laughing. And there came a point where my mom looked at my sister and said, "There is no ghost in your room." And right at that moment, we were in the living room, and my sister's room and my parents' room were down the hallway to the right. And right at that moment, a voice that sounded like it came from my parents' room, we all heard it, all 4 of us heard, "Mwahaha." I know. Okay, listen. It's the stupidest thing because I know every time I tell this story, everybody has that reaction. But I swear to you, my mom heard it. And you know what?
As
you
soon
know,
as you
no,
said
but
that, I
listen.
was going through my head trying to figure out what different things in the house could go mwah.
No, but listen. My sister, when we all heard it, we all looked at each other. And my sister just burst out crying, just like screaming crying because we all heard it. And my mom was like, that wasn't anything, that was the TV, you know, whatever. And my brother and I were, of course, like, holy crap. And so he and I went back to my parents' room where we thought it had come from.
So everybody's sleeping in your
No.
parents' room.
Mind you, my dad is not there, my older sister is not there. Okay? The TV is not on in my parents' room. In fact, there's no TV on in any room back there. The cats are outside because we had 2 cats.
Because cats go meow.
Cats can make, you know, weird noises like that. The dog was in the living room with us. And to this day, and you know what, my brother and I, we were out eating the other day, and we brought this up to my mom, and we said, because she wouldn't admit it at the time. We were like asking her, "You heard that, right?" She's like, I didn't hear anything. And we asked her the other day while we were eating if she heard it. And she
Y'all
said,
put false memories into
No,
your mom
my mom
so that
said-
she would remember
No.
Mwahaha.
my mom said, I heard it, but I wasn't going to say anything because I wasn't going to scare my sister more.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's a logical reasoning behind. Y'all probably had a toy
Literally.
that malfunctioned.
No, I swear to
and
you.
it was like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an evil toy from back then. It
I
was like,
wish I could have brought my mom, sister, and brother onto this podcast because they would sit here and say, as stupid and as weird as it sounds, we all heard wah ha ha.
I'm not saying
And it was-
that you didn't hear
And it was a deep, gravelly voice. And it happened right after my mom said, there is no ghost in your room. Mwahaha.
And it was deep.
It was very deep and gravelly.
So it was probably like...
We actually thought it was my dad at the time because he liked to scare us.
That would be funny.
Yeah.
I bet you to this day he's kept it a secret.
No, he wasn't
He had
there.
the window open.
He walked
He was
in.
outside.
No.
See, he walked in
No,
afterwards.
no. He
Yeah.
came home like an hour later. And
Oh, he waited outside an hour.
and
That's
of course,
good.
me and my brother were like, you won't believe what happened. He was like, what? And of course, he didn't believe us. Nobody believes us.
Yeah.
Except for, like, literally no one we have told the story to believes us.
Yeah, because you're
And-
all at home by yourself. You're like little kids,
But
and your mom.
The fact that my
probably
mom
like-
denied it and then, like, recently, like, months
I think she just
ago.
agreed with you guys to
Why would
stop talking about
we're
it.
all adults now.
I know.
Why would she say she heard something?
She was like, you know what? Yeah, sure, I heard something.
No, she said, she was like, you know what? I did hear it, but I wasn't going to admit it because of her being scared.
In my head, I'm going through all these different things
And
in
I
the house
asked
that
her-
make noises, and to see what could make a mwahaha sound.
And you know what? I asked her, I'm like, what were you thinking then? If you weren't admitting it to us that you heard it, because of course we were all freaking out. What was going through her mind? And she was like, I that night went and found a rosary and prayed.
So, was this during the summer or during the winter?
This was during the school year, so
This is during the winter.
I don't know what month. I know it wasn't the summertime because we were in school.
All right. So the heat kicked on. It was like,
I don't know. Like I said, I knew you'd laugh at that, and there's no way I can get you.
there was
to
no way
believe-
I wasn't going to laugh at that.
I would laugh if somebody told me
Yeah.
that story. But the thing is, my brother and sister and mom and I, we all know, no matter what, no one is ever going to believe that story. But I would defend it to the grave.
It's an enjoyable story. I loved hearing it.
I'm just saying, it is as real to me as you sitting next to me right now.
Right.
And we all, and it's one thing if it's like, you know, my sister heard it because she was scared, or, you know, my mom heard it. But all
all
four
of
of
you
us
heard
at
it.
the same time. It's just weird.
It's just weird.
It's
Let's
just
go on
weird.
to the next one. Before I start dying
I know
laughing,
people are just-
go on to the next one.
I don't know. All right, so the next one occurs, we're jumping way forward. This is probably, I'm 23 when this occurs, which is 2 years ago. So, this is really weird, and it's not paranormal. It's more so just a weird story.
More abnormal than paranormal.
More abnormal than paranormal. So, I was doing a show in a town about,
You might want to explain what you mean by doing a show.
I do live theater.
She sings, she plays the guitar, she acts. She's
Well,
great.
in this case, I was doing a show. I was doing a musical, and it was in a town about 25 minutes away. And the rehearsals tended to run kind of late, and so I was driving back home probably around 9:30 at night. And I always like to take shortcuts because I always choose back roads over main roads any day. So I was driving on this back road to get home, and I was driving next to these apartment complexes. And I guess they weren't really apartments. They were more like duplexes. They had driveways. They were like, it was like one house divided in two.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
duplexes.
saying? Like several of them down the road. And as I was driving, you know, it's really hard to see ahead of me because the road is not lit very well. I see this man on the right side of the road. And, of course, I'm not, like, speeding crazy down the road, but I'm going, like, 45 on a 35, probably something like that.
Actually, she was doing 44 and 35. Remember what the police officer said?
Whatever.
9, you're fine. 10, you're mine.
Anyway, it's pointless to reference that because they don't know what that even is.
Some of them might.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I lost my train of thought.
So you're driving down the road.
I'm driving down the
You're
road.
speeding. You're doing 10 miles over the speed limit.
I see this guy on the side of the road. And I start to slow down because whenever even if they're not in front of you, like, I still slow down because you never know. Like,
Right, you never know what somebody might do.
And in this case, it was a good thing I did. Because this man, as I get closer, he turns out to be a younger African-American man. And as I get close, he jumps in front of my car. And two things occur in my mind. I'm thinking, he's trying to jump the car. That was one thought that came into my head. And the other one, for some reason, just, he's trying to, like, get hurt.
Hurt himself?
Hurt himself, yeah.
Maybe he was suicidal.
And, well, that was it scared me. And he jumped in front of the car, and of course, I had to swerve in the other end to avoid him. And then, it was just so weird, and then he stood off to the side of the car, and of course, luckily, my doors were locked, and then I kind of went faster down the road. I didn't look in my rearview mirror, and I probably honestly wouldn't have been able to see him anyway if I did, but I chalked it up to probably drugs, because it's not that area was, like, super nice, but it wasn't, like, super run down either, and so I was like, well, maybe he was on drugs. I told my parents about it, and it really freaked them out, and they were like, he was trying to jump your car, or like something like that. I was like, but you know what?
Why would somebody jump your car doing 45 miles per hour?
That's what I'm saying.
Like, get out of the car!
Yeah. And I was like, but you know what? I was like, something in my gut told me that that's not what he was doing.
No.
I really, in my heart of hearts, I felt...
Drugs are suicidal.
Like he was trying to hurt himself. Like, that was the only thing I could think of. But that happened. Okay, 2 weeks later... I am house sitting for my older sister, and she lives about 20 minutes away from where I was living. And so this is during the daytime. I'm driving back about 3 o'clock on another back road, and it's really windy back road. So even though I'm going like 40 miles an hour, the roads are like hilly, and so I'm going faster than I even like intend to be. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I'm sorry. I wrote this story down. I'm trying to remind myself. But this road was kind of in the middle of the nowhere, and I was speeding since there really wasn't anyone around. And as I'm coming around a curve in the road, there were a set of 5 houses or so on the left-hand side of the road, and I noticed that there was a middle-aged lady at her mailbox on the near the side of the road. You know how some of these mailboxes
are on the opposite side of the road,
right? Yeah. For certain houses, she was at that mailbox, and so luckily I slowed down a bit just to be cautious of hitting her or hitting anyone else, because, like, right before my eyes, this woman jumped in front of my car. Okay, and she stood there, face forward, fully facing me, like, ready to take on my car.
She's like, I'm coming to get you.
Like, literally, that's what it looked like. And I literally had to swerve to the left lane to not hit this woman. And by this point, I was probably going 45 miles an hour or so. And finally, I straightened up and was back on the right side of the road.
You really need to stop speeding.
On this road, I really wasn't. It was like going down and...
I'm just messing with you.
Anyway, this time I did look in the rearview mirror when I was leaving, because that one really, like...
Did she have black eyes?
She was middle-aged, and I remember she had short hair that was, like, right to, like, her chin, and she was wearing bedroom slippers. I remember that, too. And, anyway, I looked behind in the rearview mirror, and she starts to chase my car. Like, chase it. And I'm like, what the, like, is going on?
It reminds me of some kind of, like, Dawn of the Dead stuff, where the zombies see you and they just start running after you. She's
chasing, and it looks like she's going as fast as she can, and I'm going, like, probably 35 miles an hour.
Was she screeching or anything?
Hold on. I'm going like 35 miles an hour because I'm looking and I really like want to see what she's going to do. And then she just stops, still in the middle of the road and just staring after my car. And honestly, these two occurrences wouldn't be as weird if they hadn't occurred within 2 weeks of each other.
And you're driving from the same place?
No. The first time I was driving from rehearsal. The second time I was driving from my sister's house.
Oh, so two different directions.
Yeah.
Oh,
Two opposite ends of town.
That is weird. Yeah,
I mean...
I'll give you that. Statistically, that's weird.
What are the odds of that happening within 2 weeks of each other? And, of course, the second one, the first one could have been drugs, whatever.
Second one could have been drugs as well.
I guess.
Or
it could.
There's a lot of, I don't know, maybe psychotic people out there, and they're just
that have
having
death
breaks.
wishes?
Well, I mean, a lot of patients don't take their medication whenever they get out.
Yeah, my mom had said that, too, because they were both like, wow, that...
that sounds like something
those are really
that
scary.
Somebody would come into the hospital about.
But you almost just wonder, like I will never know what that was about. And at the time, I really did not realize how weird it was that these things happen. Not only did they happen, but happened so close to each other.
Yeah.
That's probably the weirdest paranormal thing that's happened to me.
I'll give you that. That is weird.
Extremely weird, and it really freaked me out. Like, honestly, I was more freaked out during the one that happened in the day than at night, as weird as that is.
Because you didn't see it as well at night. In the daytime, it's like, wow, this could happen during the day.
Yeah, and the fact that she chased after my car, like, obviously you can't catch a car. Like, what are you doing? And staring after my car.
Maybe she liked your car. Stop, I want to buy your car.
Everybody wants a Ford Focus, let me tell you.
Exactly. Okay,
this brings me to my fourth story, and you are involved in this story. Aren't you so excited? Last summer, we went down to Charleston, South Carolina, and one of my favorite things to do down there is to go on the ghost tours, obviously. Well, he had never been on one, so I said, well, obviously, if we're going down here, we're going to do a ghost tour. And I kind of told him, like, they have a lot of history involved.
That's how she talked me into it.
I was like, they tell you a lot of the historical aspects of the buildings they show you, and as well as the paranormal stories that have happened. Well, first I'll just tell you, this is in the middle of the summer. This is July. We're sweating before, well, let me backtrack. We decided to go on the ghost tour of the old Charleston jail. And if you've never been to Charleston, South Carolina, I highly suggest you go. Aside from the paranormal aspect, it's a very historic city.
I enjoyed it a lot.
It's beautiful there. I consider it to be like my second home. Like, I love everything about Charleston.
I wouldn't mind making it my first home.
Yeah. It's gorgeous there. But aside from that, so we decided to do a tour. I guess it was like, did we do the 11 or 10:30? 10:30.
10:30 tour.
So we did the 10:30 tour because we wanted, obviously, to be as scared as possible.
Yes.
At the old Charleston jail. Now, this is something that has appeared on Ghost Adventures many times. A lot of ghost hunter TV shows have spent the night locked up in there because it's supposedly the haunted place in Charleston, South Carolina. Not to mention, Charleston is one of the top 10 most haunted cities in America. So,
true story.
Well, I mean, that's just, fact. But we decided to go on this tour, and I should just say, obviously, like I was saying before, it was July, it was hot.
Very hot.
Very humid, little to no breeze going on at this time. And our tour guide told us before, it's going to be extremely hot in the building because there's no AC, obviously, and this was a prison. There's not a lot of windows. And, the building was left completely intact as it was when it was built in the 1800s. So, anyway, we go inside, and of course, the building's temperature lives up to its expectation. It is so hot that I feel like I jumped in a pool. That's how hot it is, and that's how much I'm sweating. And of course, there's people on the tour, just fanning themselves constantly, saying they're going to pass out. That's how hot it was in this building. Well,
So you're saying this building was hot.
I'm trying to get.
Just building up the suspense.
Not only am I saying that, I'm trying to give them an idea of
painting a picture for them.
Yes. Either way, the tour guide is taking us through several rooms in this building, and it's about 4 stories, 5 stories, something like that. So we have to climb up a lot of stairs. Eventually, we get to, I guess, maybe the 4th floor, and we walk into the room. And, we're all kind of gathering around where the tour guide can be in the middle. We kind of gather around the room. And so he and I walk to one side, and we're just kind of standing side by side waiting for the tour to get on with his story. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, on the back of my neck, I feel the coolest, chilliest, coldest breeze, like right on the back of my neck. And immediately my first reaction is, oh my God, that feels so good. And then
maybe the ghost knew what you needed.
And then I turned to Gerald and I was like, did you feel that? And he was like,
no.
What are you talking about? And then when he said no, my heart started racing, because if he had felt it too, then I would have been like, okay, well, there was just some kind of, because he and I were standing like shoulder to shoulder pretty much.
Yeah, pretty
like
much.
And sorry, my phone was ringing. Oh, decline. We were standing shoulder to shoulder, and like there was nobody within like 5.
You should have answered that. You should have been like,
hey, do you remember the Mwahaha
talk to your
story,
dad. You could have put your dad on speakerphone and he could have told the story.
He wasn't there though.
Oh, he wasn't there. That's right.
He would have said, no, that's a load of crap.
Yeah. He would have been on my side.
Anyway, so I felt the coldest breeze, and right after that moment, as soon as he told me, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel anything like that. I just got cold chills all over my body. And
did the cold chills feel like anything like the cold breeze that you felt?
No, it was more like...
Because I was getting ready to chalk it up to that.
No, it was more like, that feeling like when you have that like sinking feeling, like something's wrong? Mm-hmm. It felt like that. And then,
you got to remember that when you told me this, he was in the middle, maybe not in the middle of it, but he was talking about all the stories about how people that have worked there have been, what did he say, attacked by ghosts or something like that? Or they did something to the workers there.
Not necessarily attacked, just messed with.
Right, messed with. And I'm laughing, and you're scared. And I'm also messing with you during this entire walkthrough, like
sure,
tapping you and
one thing that was so consistent the entire tour was the heat, was the temperature, and that's why it was so significant to me. Like if I had felt like something touched my hair, I would have been like, okay, like it's probably just something, a cobweb or something caught in my hair, or whatever. But yeah.
Well, no. Yeah, I see what you're saying with that.
I'm just saying, like, if it... this, to me, freaked me out so much because of how hot it was and how much I was sweating. Right. And how there were no windows in that room.
I know.
So...
I was just trying to think about... Because there are holes in the jail. And
naturally...
But there was no wind outside. Unless the wind picked up after we went inside, because it was supposed to storm that night. So.
And naturally, when you go into this haunted place, of course I was like adrenaline was pumping, like I was already ready to be scared, things like that. But I was expecting like a push or like a hair pull or something, like that. Like the cold breeze, I felt it was just so unexpected and so like, I don't know, I just can't put it into words. And I know I felt it because I turned right to him and said, did you just feel that?
I tried to explain some things away, but I mean, if she really felt it, she really felt it. It could have been something internal. It could have been something external. When I say internal, I mean herself freaking herself out.
Could have been.
Because yes, your body can
sometimes
make yourself
your body
cold.
Can do this.
Like when I go into fight or flight, my hands get really cold.
But the thing is, there was nothing I was scared about at that moment. Like I was. He was telling.
No,
he hadn't told the story yet. We were waiting on him to get in the room. You know how we would gather around?
Yeah, but he's told stories those stories, but he was telling us stories coming up into the top of the building.
But what I'm saying is, like, there was no moment in that moment in particular. There was nothing I was really like.
I wasn't messing with you
on edge about. You know what I'm saying?
It was complete dark.
It was dark, but I mean, I wasn't. We all had our flashlights, and
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I just
And you are scared of the dark. Yeah, I remember that.
it just makes me more excited to go back and do more of the tours now that I've had that experience.
This summer we're going to go to what?
I think I want to go back and I really want to do 2. So my goal is to do the cemetery and the dungeon one.
Let's do one at a time each summer.
Well, we're gonna do 2.
Cemetery, I don't know. As long as it has a good history, I'm happy with it.
But yeah, if you've never been to Charleston, South Carolina, I would definitely suggest going. Of course, the beach is great, the shopping's great,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
the paranormal and history is great as well. So.
Yeah, I like the historical stuff.
And Bulldog Tours is the tour company we went with, and it was really awesome.
They did a great job. Yeah, definitely knew their stuff.
Yes, very
All right.
much educated. Okay,
So I
this
can jump
brings me.
into mine?
Well, I have one last story. This is my last story, and it's very short. Okay, this one actually happened a few months ago, in my room.
Months ago
So-
in your room. I'm trying to remember this.
All right, you'll know because
All right,
I told you
Yeah,
about
I
it
would
next
hope
morning.
so. I would hope so.
Okay, so one night I was in my room, and I normally fall asleep in my room with the TV off, but I'm sorry, with the TV on. Excuse
I
me.
was gonna say when
Watching
do you fall
YouTube
asleep with TV
videos
off?
and such.
Yes.
Um,
Scary YouTube.
No,
videos. We gotta
not at
put on
night.
that.
Not at night. Not at night. But anyway, my TV is a Roku TV, and so it will automatically shut off after so many hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen it do it before, and so I'm used to waking up at night and the TV being off because it shut itself off. So one night I wake up at probably 3:45, 4
Yeah,
o'clock,
like you
something
said, it was
like that.
3 something.
And I'm like extremely thirsty, so I go into the kitchen to get some water. I come back. The TV is not only on, but the volume is up because I normally never had the volume up past like 15, and it was on like 20 something. And it's playing a YouTube video, which is not that weird because I was watching YouTube, but it was playing a Loie Lane YouTube video, which I do watch her a lot, but it was one of her paranormal YouTube videos.
We're talking about Loie Lane here. She's all paranormal.
There's the ones I was
Except
watching
for the
before,
ones where she's showing
but I
makeup.
wasn't even watching Loie Lane before I went to bed is the thing. And the fact that it was like one of her paranormal videos, and it was like halfway through the video. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like it started
Right, it's not like it started at the beginning and you went into the kitchen.
Yeah. And so I was utterly and completely freaked out, obviously.
Yeah,
I turned on the lights in my room, and
Didn't you stay at your parents' house for like
I think I
2
left.
or 3 nights after that?
I think I left and went to my parents, something like that. I was so terrified, though. And that's just a little thing that happened, but the fact that it turned on by itself, and the fact that it was playing this paranormal YouTube video, I don't know.
I
Can
kind
you
of
explain
solved
that
this.
away?
Yes, I kind of solved this mystery. I was in your room and I was watching your TV and I fell asleep. And when I woke up, the TV was off and I was laying there and the TV kicked back on by itself. So I found out when I looked it up that Roku televisions don't turn off completely whenever they go into what's called sleep mode, and randomly they'll just turn on.
But they turn on without even touching the remote?
Yes.
I don't buy it. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't buy it.
It's fine, but it kicked on me. Whenever I was in there, it was off.
Probably
Black
the same.
screen and
Probably the same
everything.
ghost.
It probably was, yeah.
Because I don't buy that a TV just turns on.
Is
Is it motion
It was
censored?
in sleep mode, and it just kicked on.
Is it motion censored though? Is that how it kicked back?
That
There's got to
wouldn't
be
solve
some
the
way.
mystery because remember the toy when you were little was
There's
motion
got to be
censored.
some way for it to kick back on. It's got to be something that indicates the TV needs to kick back on.
Yeah, you got a defective TV.
You can only cry defective so many times, buddy.
Well, you got to remember, where's everything made?
I mean, what does that have to do with anything?
If it's made poorly, then you're gonna have more defective items than if you had
All
a
I'm
company
saying
was
is that as
making
far as
stuff that was worth
just like I
making.
can only say everything's paranormal so often, you can only say everything's defective so often.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. All right, that's all of my paranormal stories. That's all I got today. I've got more, but I chose these for today.
Yes, and if we do another episode, I'm not gonna have anything because I'm just gonna tell you now all my.
Well, tell us
short
your
ones. Okay.
short ones.
I'm gonna preface this with saying that yes, I have anxiety disorder. I've had it since I was, I think 21. Had my first panic attack when I was 21, but when I was a young child, I would have what's called night terrors. So I stepped on a yellow jacket's nest whenever I was younger, and I got stung 28
Can
times.
I pause, stop you for a second? I know that before you explained it to me, I really didn't know the difference between a nightmare and a night terror.
Oh, nightmares, you're asleep, you're dreaming about something, you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, it was just a nightmare. Night terrors, you're asleep, you're dreaming about something, you wake up and you're still seeing it.
You're still
and
there.
You're still, yeah, it's still there.
It's like in real life.
Yes,
you're seeing
it's in
it.
real life.
Okay.
It's almost like you pull it from your dream to real life.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that for them.
So I wake up in the middle of the night and there are bees swarming my room, just swarming my room. And so I'm running into my mom's room and I'm like, come quick. There's bees all in my room. She comes in there, turns on the light, nothing's in there. I've captured small animals that I think they're in my bed and I take them into my parents' room and be like, look what I found. And I open my blanket up and there's nothing there. But whenever I grab these things, I can feel them. You know, it feels like there's a ball or whatever in that blanket, but whenever I open it up, it's not there.
It's wild.
Also, I sleepwalk a lot when I was younger. I don't think I do it as much anymore. I used to get up, go to the bathroom, and then I would sleepwalk and be behind like the bathroom door. And my mom would wake up and I would scare because I would just be standing there sleeping behind the bathroom door. And she'd be like, go to bed. And then she would go to bed and I'd end up walking towards my room, but I would end up in the hall closet. And then I would scare her again because she would hear a noise and she would open up the door and see me standing in the hall closet. And when I learned how to whistle the first time, I whistled in my sleep. So can you imagine being in your bed asleep and all of a sudden you hear whistling and you go through the house trying to figure out where this whistling's coming from and your son is in bed just whistling a tune, just whistling away.
Yeah, that's weird.
And so sleptwalk, talked to my sleep. My brothers had conversations with me where I would say something like bamboo and he was like, bamboo, what's the bamboo for? And I'm like, to make the bed, to build the bed. And he would have a conversation with me while I'm sleeping and then tell me about it the next day. And so as I got older, it disappeared, it went away, no big deal. But then I started having the panic attacks, and when I get into really stressful situations, the night terrors do come back. And the first one that came back was when I was working at a mental health place, and we had to check on the patients every 15 minutes, and it was a high stress job. You had to know where all these patients were. So if a supervisor came on, they'd grab your clipboard and say, where's this patient, where's this patient? So I'm waking up in the middle of the night searching my house for patients. That's how engulfed I was in this job, that I would just wake up in the middle of the night searching my house. And it got so bad that I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would see somebody just walking across the living room, or not the living room, but my bedroom, and walk right into the closet. I had that happen twice. One night I woke up, and this is going to be a little bit graphic and gruesome, but there was a lady laying in the bed beside me, and her throat was cut. And so I jump up and I'm like, don't move, I'm going to go get help. And I run out of my room, I run downstairs, and then I remember my cell phone is plugged up in my room on the other side of the room. So I run back into my room, and she's not there, luckily, because can you imagine me calling 911 about somebody with their throat cut and not there? I know I would end up in one of those.
It's like that movie we watched, Oculus, where you don't know what's real.
Yes.
It's wild.
Pretty much. That's what it's like. And those were happening whenever I was living in Myrtle Beach. But recently, since I moved to where we live now to be a school psychologist, and it was so stressful that, I mean, I weighed 180 pounds when I moved here, and then I dropped down to 150 something. And I'm still trying to get back up to at least above 170, but it was so anxiety provoking that I started having night terrors again. And these night terrors would be like, I would wake up standing in the middle of my room, and picture this, I like blackout curtains, I have a fan on, and I don't like any light in my room. So I'm standing in the middle of the room, I don't know where I am. And when I finally find the door to go out of my bedroom, I open the door up, and it feels like I'm in this portal, and I don't know where I am. Nothing looks familiar to me, and I'm opening doors trying to figure out where I am, and I end up right back in my bedroom. And finally, I just start using my thought, and I'm just like, okay, I'm in my bedroom, the light switch is over here. As soon as I turn the light, I feel better. One time it happened, that exact same thing happened whenever I was living with my brother, my older brother, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I'm standing in the middle of the room, and it's pitch black, and I have to go to the bathroom. So imagine that, standing in the middle of a room, not knowing where the door handle was. So I learned my lesson from that.
Sorry, brother.
Yeah, well, no, I finally found the doorknob, but it was close. So I painted the light switch, the light cover, with glow-in-the-dark paint. So if that ever happened again, I'd be able to find the door handle to get out of the room. So mine's more of a psychological problem, not paranormal. I mean, some people would be like, oh my gosh, that is paranormal. People were walking across the room, you saw a dead lady in your bed.
Well, that's what I thought initially when you first told me that, but excuse me, I'm sorry. But I learned more about night terrors and heard more about people talk about them who experience them as well, and it really is like Oculus. Like, you really can't I'm sorry, differentiate with what's real and what's not.
Yeah, because it's just like being in a dream. You don't know that you're in a dream. And so you just, have to come up with whatever you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's just weird. Like, I can't imagine. I know I personally would not be able to deal with night terrors just because I would obviously think it was paranormal.
Well,
but
you're already kind of a jumpy person. Like, what was it? The dog barked the other day, and you about jumped out of your skin.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm anxious in some ways as well. So, I don't know. But I can't imagine, like, the way you talk about it so casually, it would, like, petrify me.
Well, you got to think that I've been dealing with it for a while now, and I actually wake up, I have panic attacks in my dreams. So I wake up, and the outline of my body is sweat on my bed. Like, I get up, I actually either have to lay a towel down on my bed or take the sheets off and put a new sheet on. Something like that. So you kind of get, that's why horror movies don't scare me. I can sit there and watch horror movies with anybody. They don't scare me because I have my own horror movies that I watch every night.
The only horror movies that really scare me are the ones that are like
think they're
realistic.
Based in truth. Yeah, realistic.
Well, based in truth or could happen.
Yes.
Like The Strangers, like it wasn't based in truth, but it could happen.
It could happen. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Craziness. Right. Is that all you had?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't have...
That's right.
Crazy things don't happen
I have this theory that things have happened to him, but he just explained them away in his head so well that he doesn't even remember them. And they were probably really good paranormal stories, too.
I'm trying to think, like... Nothing really... I mean, I've gone out camping, we've told ghost stories. I've been scared when I was younger, but it's not because... It's all, you hear... like wolves or owls or something in the woods, and you can explain those. My mind doesn't jump to paranormal. It automatically starts thinking, okay, what is the most logical, reasoning behind this?
Right. And sometimes you just...
It's like the pizza thing we talked, when we talked about it in whatever episode that was.
And I mean, sometimes there legitimately just are things you can't explain, though. I mean, there might be a real reason for it, but there's not one that you know of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and when that happens, I just say, huh.
Like all those stories I told, there could be, but I don't know what they are.
Right.
The reasons.
Yeah, we don't know 100%.
Yeah.
You know, we say at the beginning of this podcast about finding the truth, but we never find the absolute truth.
Right.
We can just get as close as we can to it and make
And also,
suggestions.
if you're listening to this, maybe something similar's happened to you. Maybe you can think of what was causing some of these occurrences to happen. What stimulated TVs to come on and vanities and batteries to never die and what to happen.
I'm always gonna laugh about
I
that
hate
now.
it because that's one of the best paranormal stories I have, but it's also one I'm so reluctant to tell because people just laugh.
That's funny because whenever I text you and I'm doing my evil laugh at my text, I always go, "Mwahaha." I add a B to the beginning of it, and you have a paranormal story that has "Mwahaha."
It's legitimate. Like, I guess if I was a ghost, I would probably do stuff like that. Mwahaha.
No, that'd be me. I'm the one that's always joking around. That would be like my dad joke. Like
There's no such thing. There's no ghost in your room.
Yeah. Mwahaha. All right, so wrap it up.
Yeah, I enjoyed this.
Yeah, that was fun.
No, listen, I really liked the, and I know that sometimes you do need to have a plan for when you talk about episodes, but I really liked, I mean, you guys, we literally had no script for this podcast. It was probably clear, but
Yeah, obviously.
but I feel like when you're telling your own stories, tell them in your own way.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like,
felt a lot more comfortable doing it
I
that
feel
way.
comfortable because we were literally like this whole time we were just looking at each other like talking, like that's
Yeah.
what it was. I kind of liked it rather than looking at our notes on computer screens. I kind of liked it more.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about something about yourself, you're sitting there remembering something.
Yeah, like I would look up and like I could hear and feel the things that happen in the story.
I think that if we do, or when we do have another
I've got
personal
more.
stories.
I've got more.
Well, no, I'm saying why don't we invite somebody or people to
That's my
do like a
favorite.
Skype
That
and
would be
tell their
awesome.
stories as well.
That's my favorite. And also, this is one thing I also want to do. I said at the beginning, I love hearing anybody's personal paranormal story. So if you have one, we would love to share it with our listeners on here, and we'll definitely give you credit. We can change your name if you want. And maybe we can, next time we do a personal story, have people send them in either to our email.
Yes, no,
or-
actually just send them to our Twitter.
Or
Just
DM us on Twitter.
Yeah, DM us on
Yeah.
Twitter. And it'll
your
be,
best
I'll
personal
get
story.
it right away.
Yeah. And we would definitely love to share as many as we can.
Yeah.
We could call it Your Personal Story Day.
Yeah.
Be
exactly.
awesome. And give our thoughts and comments.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's a great idea.
Well, I had a really good time today.
Yeah, that
I'm
was fun.
so glad. I'm sorry, y'all. This is so overdue.
The relief is off of me because I'm always like, oh, you got all these people that are wondering,
Right.
where are you?
Where are you?
And I'm just
MIA.
like, I'm sorry. So many things pop up.
I know.
You know, we can't really help it.
I really, and I know we said this last time, but I seriously am going to try to, make sure we're consistent. We're
Well,
consistent.
this Friday I'm off. We have to have something for this Friday.
We'll try to double up this week. It seems.
Let's not promise that because what if we can't?
You mean next Friday? Like
well,
a week from
today
today.
is Friday, so
A week
this
from
Friday
today, yeah.
would be,
All right.
Friday.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it enough. We can't believe we have as many listeners as we have with only 2 months. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But as long as you keep listening, we're going to keep bringing you the best of the best.
You know what?
Or
I think we'd
as
still
close
do
to the
this
best
even
as
if
we
we
can.
didn't have a lot of listeners.
I think we would too.
But let us know. Go on iTunes, give us a review, and thanks for listening to Conspire.
Duh.
Duh.